Hey everyone, it's Sam. Today we're going to be talking about setting up Stripe Webhooks. Stripe Webhooks make it easy for you to respond to different billing events like a user cancels, or maybe they upgrade to a new plan, or they switch from yearly to a monthly plan. All the things that you want to handle in your application, but you don't actually directly interact with Stripe in those scenarios. The user is directly interacting with Stripe. So you're going to be able to get those events from Stripe and then handle them to update the user's plan or to set their billing timing or update their usages in the backend, anything that you need to do to handle these events for Stripe. And it's really helpful and something that you really need if you're doing a Stripe integration with Rails. So let's jump into the code and see how it all fits together. So the first thing you're going to want to do is download the Stripe CLI. The Stripe CLI is going to give you the ability to create fake events. Fake events are going to let you test your webhook logic to make sure that it's all fitting together correctly. So you're going to go just type in, download Stripe CLI into Google, go to Stripe CLI, and then you're going to want to install it with Homebrew if you're on Mac, and then obviously, whatever else you need. Then we're just going to run through here, and we're going to do a Stripe login here. Stripe login is going to want you to be redirected to your Stripe, to the Stripe auth page. It's going to bump me back here. I'm going to authenticate here. I'm going to, grade this out a little bit so you can't see all this stuff, but it's going to let you do it's going to let you install directly into your Stripe account. So I'm going to do that and I'll come back in a second. So now that everything's logged in correctly, what we can do is listen to Stripe events. So if you check out the terminal here, we have this Stripe listen command and we're forwarding it to our local host, which makes it so that we don't have to set up ngrok or something like that to have an exposed web server to make all this work. So we'll do Stripe listen, and we're going to send it to this /Stripe webhook URL. So what you're going to want to do is go into your routes file, add a post request for Stripe webhook, and then send it to obviously whatever controller you want, but I'm going to use a Stripe controller with a webhook action. So we'll go to the Stripe webhook, we'll go to the Stripe controller, and we're going to see that at the beginning, first, what we're doing is skipping the authenticity token. We need to do this because the authenticity token is for when our front end is making requests to our back end. We want to make sure that the post requests are coming from that endpoint, coming from our own front end. So we need to have the authenticity token verified, which is the CSRF token, which is embedded in each form and on the meta tag in the views. But since Stripe isn't our system, they don't have a CSRF token to use for us. So we want to skip that for the webhook endpoint. The security is going to come from this next point, which is the Stripe signature and the endpoint secret. The endpoint secret, as you can see, is spit out here when we do the Stripe listen. And when we add it for production, the Stripe interface will give us a webhook secret that you can embed in your controller. So usually, obviously, you don't want this to be just in hard-coded inside your application. You're going to want to put this in the Rails credential file or in an environment variable. But for now, I just want to show you how these are connected. So the endpoint secret is here. You can read this from an environment variable, and then we use the built-in Stripe gem to handle the webhook. So you're just going to want to add the gem Stripe to your gem file, and then you'll be able to use all the Stripe functionality. We're going to talk a lot more about Stripe in the coming videos. So having it in your gem file is going to help with everything that you need here. So you can just see at the bottom here, gem Stripe is all you need to get going. You're going to also want to update your initializer, if you haven't already, to add the Stripe API key for other Stripe interactions, but right now we're just using the webhook, so you don't need to worry about that. So all you do to construct the event is pass the payload. The payload is just the body. This header is the signature header that we just discussed, and the endpoint secret is exactly what we just talked about there. So what Stripe is going to do is make sure that the request actually came from Stripe, which is going to make sure that you are handling, is making sure that you aren't getting something from a nefarious third-party source. So Stripe events are going to be what you want to handle to update your users to different states. So you have the event type here. Payment succeeded is going to be the most important one, which is going to be the one that keeps track of when someone actually is charged money. So in this case, when the payment succeeds, you're going to want to do something, like update some user to have, plan type paid or something like that. Obviously, all of this is going to need to be created on your own for your different application, because the applications are all going to be different. I'm going to show you later in different videos about the ways that I like to set this up, but this is just going to go over exactly how to use webhooks. So in the case of these webhooks, what you're going to want to do is find out which events are important to you. Most likely payment intent succeeded, charged failed, and we can go through actually and look through a list of different types of events. It's the Stripe Docs API event types, and that's going to give you a full list of the ones that you're going to be able to get from Stripe. What I suggest that you do is, while using this endpoint, so you can see puts events type, use your Stripe integration that you have already, see which types of events are getting fired, and then see exactly the way that you're going to want to handle those. That's going to be the best way to see how it fits in with your application. The bottom here is just handling if there's a signature verification error, which means, as we talked about earlier, the secrets don't match, and a parser error if we didn't read the JSON correctly, which is thrown by the Stripe Webhook construct event class. We can dive into this. You can look that up on the website. And that's going to give you sort of the general way of handling the webhooks. So what you might want to do is, once you're handling these webhooks, you're going to want to see that maybe some of the updates are going to take a little bit too long, because you want to respond to Stripe that you successfully handled the event. Stripe is going to wait 20 seconds, and if you don't, then it's going to fire the same event again. What you want to make sure is that you write your code in a way that if the event gets fired twice, it's not going to mess up your user's sort of situation in the system that you have. So what I like to do is usually put a job here, like something like payment handle payment job, and then send it the event maybe, or get the different information out of the event that you want to handle the payment, and then have that run in a background job. That way you can handle sort of the retry mechanism, and you don't have to rely on Stripe sending you the webhooks over again. If there's an error, you can retry them yourself. So that's sort of like the way I like to handle that. So right now, let's just put payment succeeded. I'm going to show you now how to simulate events getting sent. So we have this all set up. We have the Stripes listening here, and we're going to go into this, into our terminal here, obviously, and we're going to run this trigger. The trigger is going to allow us to trigger any possible event that we want. So we'll do the Stripe trigger payment succeeded. It's going to say trigger succeeded, and then we can see on here that we got a 200 request. 200 meaning that it succeeded correctly, and we were able to verify all of the signature, etc. I can show you as well here the just quickly check this out. You can see that we have the successful request happening and the payment intent is created from here. That's good for us there. And then what we can do now is just to show how it works and make sure that we understand how the secret works. Let's add some elements here to make the secret incorrect. So it's going to run, it's going to trigger, and then we're going to get a 400. And the 400 is because the signature failed. So go back, run it again, and we're going to see a 200. So that's going to show us that and make sure that the secrets are actually working. So now that we have everything set up correctly in development, what we need to do is update it so that we can use it in production, obviously. So you want to go to the webhook area here in Stripe, so developers, webhooks here. And right now we're in test mode, and as you can see, it keeps track of the local listener that we have here. But what you want to do is obviously switch it into production. I have a Stripe webhook right now for my website. So let's add a new one just for fun, just to see how it works. So let's say, we just put the endpoint here, devscoach.com/stripe/webhook. And you can do events on your account, events on connected accounts. If you're using Stripe Connect accounts, you have to set up 2 separate webhooks, one for your own account and one to handle all the events that are related to people creating connected accounts on your platform. Right now, we're just worried about the regular events. So we do that. So we click this one, and you have to select the events that you are interested in receiving. You can do all events and then just filter them out on your side, but then you're going to get a lot more requests from Stripe, which maybe isn't exactly what you want. So usually I specify the ones I want exactly, like in payment intents succeeded, and maybe charge failed, things like that. And as you can see, the Stripe website actually does a nice little thing here where it helps you understand how it works. This is using Sinatra instead of Rails, but mainly the logic is the same. So it's pretty easy for you to understand as you add events. It will update the case statement there. So we'll just add those events. And so we're going to say we're going to do that. Let's call this webhook 2 just because I already have a webhook set up. I don't want it to fail. So add endpoint. And then what you're going to have here is the signing secret. So this is the one we talked about in development that spits out when you do the Stripe listen. But in production, you can hit reveal. This will show up here. I'm going to delete this, so I don't really care if you see it. But it was going to show up here, and then you're going to want to put that in your Rails either environment variables, or what I would do is put them in my credentials file. The credentials file is, you can separate it from development and production, and then that way, if you are sharing this information between people on your team, all you need to do is have the master key, and then they can use it. And then as it's going, you're going to be able to see the logs where what events happen, if it's a 200, 500, and then Stripe will actually send you emails if your webhook is failing. So that's all you need to set it up in production, and it should work exactly the same way as development. Just make sure that you are listening to the events that you need to, because that's one of the gotchas with setting it up for production. And make sure that you update the signing secret. Hopefully that's helpful. Now that you have a Stripe webhook set up, you're ready to handle events with Stripe. So that's going to give you a lot of flexibility on handling user upgrades, downgrades, and it allows you really to integrate more deeply with the Stripe ecosystem, which makes a lot of things easier, and there's a lot of extra coding that you do not need to do yourself, and you can rely on the Stripe system to handle it for you. I hope that's helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. If you liked it, please subscribe and follow for more.